Good evening. You know, not too long ago, I put up a link. I actually put up part of the video, and then I linked it to a activist in California that was present at some peaceful protests where Orange County or LA County, it was LA County sheriff's deputies used beanbag rounds fired at people's heads to just harass them. They were firing these beanbag rounds from the back parking lot of a sheriff's station at people that were walking down the sidewalk and street protesting. And one of those beanbag rounds struck a young lady in the head, basically knocking her unconscious and splitting her head wide open. This is not an isolated incident where police misuse what's supposed to be less lethal items in their inventory against people who are peacefully protesting. You'll see them in police cars driving by crowds, randomly pepper spraying the crowds. Bean bags, we've seen those used. We've seen just pepper balls, used against people who are doing nothing, literally just standing on a sidewalk holding a sign. And for the most part, these abuses go unpunished, which is why they do it. Now, for those of you that don't know, these beanbag rounds are fired from either a shotgun, they're yay big out of a shotgun, or they have some others that are out of basically a grenade launcher that are about as big as the palm of my hand. And they move at pretty high velocity. And the training is that they be fired at your lower limbs, your thighs, and things like that. Never, ever at somebody's head. And yet we see that happening. Well, the city of Austin has taken a stand against rogue officers doing that sort of thing. And I'm going to read you this story because they have indicted I think it's 18 police officers for misusing less lethal munitions, specifically beanbags out of riot shotguns and the sort against peaceful protesters. I will put a link to this article in the description of this video. This is AP, Associated Press, out of Austin, Texas. A Texas grand jury indicted 19 Austin police officers on charges of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon for their actions during 2020 protests over racial injustice that spread nationwide following the killing of George Floyd, according to people familiar with the matter. Multiple people spoke to the Associated Press Thursday on condition of an anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss the case publicly. Austin Police Association President Kennedy Cassidy confirmed 19 officers are facing charges but did not have the details. That's the Austin Police Association is their police union. It ranks among the most indictments on a single police department in the U.S. over tactics used by officers during the widespread protests. Methods that led to the resignation or ouster of several police chiefs across the country. Word of the indictments came hours after Austin city leaders approved paying $10 million to two people injured by members of the 1,640 officer department during the protests, including a college student who suffered brain damage after an officer shot him with a beanbag round. Brain damage. It means he shot him in the head. Combined, the charges and settlements amounted to conservative Texas's liberal capital of 960,000 people taking some of its biggest actions as criticism still simmers over its handling of the protests, which intensified pressure on then Police Chief Brian Manley to eventually step down. Jose Garza, the district attorney for Travis County, which includes Austin, spoke to journalists Thursday afternoon about the grand jury investigation, but gave no specifics about it, including how many officers are facing charges and for what crimes. Our community is safer when our community trusts law enforcement. When it believes law enforcement follows that law and protects the people who live here, Garza said, there cannot be trust if there is no accountability when law enforcement breaks the law. Hear, hear, hear. A spokesman for the Travis County District Attorney's Office, Ismael Martinez, declined to comment on the number of officers charged and referred reporters to Garza's comments. Prosecutors have not identified any of the officers facing charges. Texas law requires that an indictment remain secret until an officer has been arrested. Aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, when committed by a public servant, could carry a sentence of up to life in prison. Cassidy, the president of Austin Police Association, called the move devastating for law enforcement in the city, but also said he's confident that no officer will be convicted. He criticized Garza, calling the investigation politically motivated. DA Garza ran on a platform to indict police officers and has not missed the opportunity to ruin lives and careers simply to fulfill that campaign promise, Cassidy said. So he's doing the right thing, and of course the police union's fussing about it. Garza said his office prosecutes anybody who causes harm, regardless of who causes it. Austin Chief of Police Joseph Chacon, who took the job after Manley left, said he respects the grand jury process, but was extremely disappointed to hear the district attorney announce anticipated indictments of his officers. Chacon stressed that his command staff had prepared officers to face hundreds of people when thousands actually showed up to protest that he said were at times riotous and violent. I am not aware of any conduct that, given the circumstances that the officers were working under, would rise to the level of a criminal violation by these officers. Sounds like you're out of touch with reality, dude. It really does. You got a student that was shot in the head with a beanbag round, and you're unaware of anything that would... Stupid. All right. But beanbag rounds fired by officers did not always perform in the manner anticipated, Chacon said, and his agency now prohibits the use of less lethal munitions in crowd control situations. The settlements approved Thursday are among the largest paid to people who were injured by police across the U.S. during massive protests that followed Floyd's death. The largest of the Austin settlements gives $8 million to Justin Howell, who was 20 years old when police shot him with a beanbag round. Family members told the AP following the incident that Howell suffered a cracked skull and brain damage, leaving him in critical condition for multiple days. But the police chief is unaware of anybody misusing these rounds. The city will also pay $2 million to Anthony Evans, who was 26 when an Austin police officer shot him with a beanbag round in a separate incident which resulted in extensive medical treatment in his jaw. Austin Mayor Steve Adler said the settlements remind us of a real difficult and painful moment in our city. A representative for the Howell family did not immediately respond to a request for comment. It is the latest reflection of how 2 years after the protests that swept across the country, cities are still addressing the injuries and tactics used by police. Earlier this month, prosecutors announced charges against 2 Dallas police officers accused of injuring demonstrators after firing less lethal munitions. Another heavily protected, unionized police department. It's worth noting. After the protests in Austin, then Police Chief Manley later said Howell was not the intended target after an altercation in a crowd, which he said involved people who threw objects at a line of officers. Authorities have said authorities have said that led to the officers firing at the mass of protesters from above. David Frost, who captured on video the moments after Howell was shot, told the AP that he saw protesters throwing fist-sized rocks and water bottles at the line of police officers on an overpass. Then he saw Howell fall. He was bleeding heavily and went into a seizure. The settlements are the second and third payments awarded among a dozen lawsuits filed in Austin that have claimed injuries from the protest. Earlier this month, the Austin American-Statesman reported that a $150,000 settlement was approved for a woman named Ariana Chavez, who was shot in the head with less lethal munitions, resulting in a concussion. At least 19 people were hospitalized in Austin following the protest. 11 officers were disciplined for their actions in the early summer protests, with 7 additional officers placed on administrative duty. I will link this story in the description of this video so that you can go over there and read it for yourself. But this has been an ongoing issue. This is not new. We have been seeing this kind of behavior for, since the Tea Party days, the Occupy Wall Street stuff. Police, New York PD would just walk along a line of guys sitting on the sidewalk and just blast them with huge cans of pepper spray, things of that sort. Law enforcement has not been held accountable and not been taken to task for using these less lethal munitions, which I will tell you, if improperly used, can be lethal. Let me show you something. This is a pepper ball launcher. It also will fire these hard plastic rounds. It pumps these out. There's a pepper ball for you. It pumps these out, and this one has been slightly modified, but most of the Byrna launchers will pop these things out at around 280 feet per second. If they're optimized properly, they'll run about 300 feet per second. Now, when you get over 300 feet per second with these, the pepper balls will actually shatter in the barrel, so it's not effective. However, these don't shatter in the barrel. But even at 280 feet per second, okay, one of these will take out an eye and is capable of penetrating a couple of inches into the eye socket. It could reach, depending upon the weight and the speed of the projectile, it could possibly be fatal. It could also be fired at the skull, and the impact would or could shatter the skull, crack the skull, and force pieces of the skull into the brain. Now, this is a piece of equipment that, if used properly and with good judgment, can be used to not harm somebody. Nothing significant anyway. They get some nice bruises and welts, and I can tell you the pepper balls are not anything to toy with. But if you misused it, it can have devastating consequences. Yes, it's less lethal when properly used. Improperly used, it can be lethal. And this is what the police have been doing for years. Misusing these tools to be injurious to people because they think it's funny. It's all fun and games to them. And just to give you an idea, I'm going to give you a sneak peek into something. I'm going to give you an idea of how these police departments, the mentality and the how they feel and how they're encouraged to feel towards people who are protesting. I'm going to give you an eye into that. Now, we all know what's going on up in Canada, up in Ottawa, and the police there, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, have been sharing messages in a Facebook group, and those messages got made public on February the 19th. And I'll read this article to you, and then I'm going to show you some of the messages that they've been passing around. Now, there was a reporter for Rebel News that was arrested and assaulted, and they have a thing here, and I will link this story in the description of this video as well. But they are raising money to assist her with a lawsuit and legal fees and whatnot. But to the article. Leaked RCMP messages. Time for the protesters to hear our jackboots on the ground. RCMP currently in Ottawa to assist in the crackdown on peaceful protesters allegedly brag about using brutal force in a leaked group chat. In what appear to be authentic screenshots of the RCMP musical ride team currently in Ottawa to assist in the crackdown on peaceful protesters in the capital city, members brag about using brutal force. Over the last 24 hours in Ottawa, police have deployed pepper spray and canisters on demonstrators, arrested dozens, and trampled 2 people with horses. And if you haven't seen that, the old lady on the little scooter that they ran over with a horse, go check it out. You can Google it and get it. In the chat, RCMP musical ride member Andrew Nixon sends a picture of a pint of beer, hoping for his chance to abuse protesters. And here's what he says. Don't kick all of them out until next week's group gets our turn. Member Robin Thibault remarks about accommodations police are being given in Ottawa. Nice downtown in Chateau Laurier. Nixon jokes about police brutality. Time for the protesters to hear our jackboots on the ground. After being admonished for his remarks, Nixon mocks protesters. Okay, we can give out free hugs and unicorn stickers. A member named Marka laughs off the prior night trampling of 2 demonstrators, one of which had a mobility scooter. Just watch the horse video. That is awesome. We should practice that maneuver. And then it goes down here to show the screenshots. Yeah, hashtag heroes. Hashtag heroes. Yeah. This is what heroes do, all right? They abuse peaceful protesters. And here, looks like they need more leg into the hand. Now it's downtown Chateau. Adam room at the back. I guess going to be a 0330 a.m. wake up time for all see. Yeah, it's just a bunch of stuff. Signed up anyone not signed up, jump on this. Your police officers first and ride members second. Don't cower away when we're needed. Even one shift can relieve an ops member for one night. Yeah, and it just goes on and on and on. And like I said, I will put a link to this in the description so that you guys can get over there and read the article for yourself. But once again, this is the nature of policing when it comes to dealing with anybody that doesn't go along with the blue narrative, with the blue lie, with the government masters. Police are not here to serve the communities. Police are here to serve the government masters or private business masters. If you're in Deer Park and work for, Shell takes care of all that. Shell must be paying all the Deer Park Police Department. But this is what we're dealing with. And it's got to stop. And Austin is taking a stand and stepping up. And I'm glad to see it. I'm glad to see that finally somebody is being held responsible for misusing less lethal stuff in a fashion which could make it lethal. It's long overdue. Long overdue. Guys, links to everything is in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.